As is tradition, each senior class selects a faculty member to address them on their special day of graduation. I'd like to now invite Abby Monologue to introduce the class of 2018 faculty speaker.
If you ask most graduates of their most difficult year of high school, they will immediately share of the peril of junior year. With multiple APs, test scores, and critical report cards, we desperately needed a safe zone, a quiet refuge. This calm within the storm came in the form of a biology lab and the kind, compassionate teacher that resided in it. Mrs. Dunn is a human equivalent of a golden sunrise reflecting on calm waters. Instead of sitting at her desk, she would stand at the door and greet every one of us by name. She is a teacher that most consistently asks us about our days, not just a simple, "How are you?" but about our worries and what she can do to help. On a warm, sunny day, it became routine to hold class on the grassy field outside, experiencing God's creation firsthand. A rainy day featured an AP study session where we sat on the floor, ate some healthy Trader Joe's snacks Mrs. Dunn provided, and bonded over our endless struggle with biology multiple choice. We had waffle breakfast, dissected pigs, and even went on a class trip to the San Juan Islands. While Mrs. Dunn's passion for science is evident, her passion for her students has a far stronger impact. At the beginning of every class, Mrs. Dunn prays for every single one of us. She reaches far beyond prayers of general well-being and asks us about both our school and personal lives. I realized in those moments that her endless compassion has made her classroom not just a safe refuge, but a home. And Mrs. Dunn, not just our teacher, but our family. Just as I hold those words then close to my heart, I know that her words of wisdom today will stay with us for the rest of our lives. Thank you.
One cold winter's night in the mountains near Leavenworth, a group of you headed out into the crisp night air. You stood and looked up at stars that hung like golden apples in a black velvet orchard, and you did what humans have been doing since the onset of humankind. You took out your phones. You opened an app that allowed you to name the constellations and stars above you. The constellations you were observing revealed but a fraction of the estimated 100 million stars in each of 2 trillion galaxies in the known universe. Isaiah 40 assures us that God has counted them and knows each star by name, and you, imaging him, were for a night namers of the lights. For humans, there is particular joy in naming the world into being. It's been one of my recent pleasures, as you know, to watch my grown children select names for my grandbabies. And I would like to welcome Wesley Charles Dunn to the world as of Wednesday. And then to watch the babies themselves begin to name. Their first words name the people they love most. And then their vocabulary ramps exponentially and joyfully as they attach names to objects: bear, book, ball. Esther Lightcap Meek, in her book, Loving to Know, points out that this wording, if you will, is first of all fun, a form of play. And secondly, it is done for another human who listens and celebrates with us. Today, your names will be called, names given you 18 years ago by parents who love you immeasurably. It will be a moment of some gravity, a reminder that you are important, that you matter, and not just to your family, One day this spring, I was standing outside my room near a half dozen of you lolling about in the sun. One of our lower school aides walked by on the path and yelled in our general direction, "You've changed a lot since you were a cow." I looked around to be sure she wasn't talking to me and saw behind me our fantastic beast from the spring musical. Apparently, this fine actor had been the star cow in the first grade play. And our amazing aide had remembered, this is what it means to be known at Bear Creek. You've changed a lot since you were a cow. Whether you've been here 13 years or 3, you matter to every person gathered in this building. You are known and loved by us. And as your names are called in a little while, we will be listening and we'll celebrate with you. We'll celebrate your history with us, the things you know from your years at Bear Creek. You've read innumerable books. You can name them, from Sarah Plain and Tall to Brave New World. You know your name in other languages, and you know how to name unidentified variables in math. You've put your name, or forgotten to put your name, on hundreds of written documents, from Young Authors Fair to lab reports to all those papers due at the end of your senior year. One day in Capstone last April, you were hard at work, and I overheard one of you say, "It was a bad idea to teach us existentialism and then assign us all these papers." You've learned a bit of philosophy, apparently. We today celebrate your deep determination and commitment as a community of learners. Community is an important word to you, perhaps what you do best. You have healthy friendships, the offline, in-person kind, and appear about as click-free as a bunch of teenagers can be. Ephesians 3 commends connection of the sort you exhibit and commands those connections be rooted and grounded in love. I'd like to tell you the story of a maple tree. Forgive the biology moment. Maple trees, genus Acer, species Saccharum, each have a central taproot reaching deep into the soil to access water below. Water flows passively from the soil into the roots up to the leaves, supplying electrons for photosynthesis. It's an unbroken column of water all the way to the sky. Trees are amazing. All right, where was I? Okay. But in the spring, according to botanist Hope Yaron in her book Lab Girl, when maple seeds are germinating and saplings grow nearby, the central maple also extends lateral roots near the surface. Instead of drawing up water solely for its own needs, the mature tree pulls water partway up its taproot and then pumps that water out the lateral roots into the soil beneath the saplings. There is a cost. Energy and growth are paused so that the big tree can supply life to the smaller ones. Profound truths spoken aloud often sound cheesy, but I'm not afraid, never have been, of cheese. Here's a profound truth. You have been mentored by such trees. Your parents, an older sibling, a college advisor, your teachers. Mr. McKinney, that Psalm 1 giant of a tree. Be deeply rooted and grounded in love. Be anchored by the connections below so that you can love others extensively, even recklessly. It's your turn to be that tree. Perhaps today, due to practical considerations, some of your connections will end. You will probably never stand on risers in this exact constellation again. So as we celebrate you, let's celebrate the endings. Today, you say goodbye to bells wafting you in and out of classrooms in 3 short minutes. Goodbye to Book House. It is the best house. Goodbye to teachers reminding you to turn in your homework. Goodbye to khaki pants. Unless, of course, you're going to pilot school and get to wear them for 4 more years. You go, girl. And we celebrate with you the beginnings. The world is a wild place, wrote Annie Dillard, dangerous and bitter, extravagant and bright. I think you're ready, because this is what I know to be true about you. You would rather climb trees than name them. It's hard to get you down out of there. In a sandy bay on a blustery day, you ran toward the lightning rather than the shore. And given the choice between staying out in the storm or sequestering safely in a museum, most of you begged for the storm. A little fall of rain doesn't daunt you. I watched with growing admiration earlier this year as you gave serious consideration to choosing your class verse. Consider it. Consider it pure joy, my sisters and brothers, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because the testing of your faith produces endurance. The subterranean life of trees, the anchoring connections below supporting the forest above, reminds us that the obvious is not everything. We tend to be well filled with our own thoughts, with a sense of our own abundance. But naming and knowing require attention to others and to the invisible beneath the visible, to endurance, vitality, hopefulness, kindness, faith. As the poet Mary Oliver says, let your influences on each other become a rich and abiding confluence. And remember, as you ride this wild life, there are two main types of roller coaster, those that run on a track and those in which you sit far above the ground, feet dangling helplessly. The latter feel scarier, but they're actually quite safe because they are anchored from above. I don't know about you all, but when I'm on such a ride, I always look up at the steel beams and girders, checking, with all my engineering expertise, for the strength of the connections. I am often steadied by their sheer massiveness. Here is the thing about trees and stars, and even roller coasters. They demand that to fully appreciate them, you must look up. And so does your calling into the life ahead. When it gets wild, when you face trials of many kinds and your feet dangle helplessly, look to Christ Jesus, to the cross on a hill, to the heights of his grace, which will steady and anchor you. Today, as your name is called and you step forward into your future, look up at the loving faces in this auditorium. See the strength of the connections. And later on, in the quiet of the night, slip outside and look up once more at the stars. God knows them all as he knows you by name.